Broadcasting from Charlotte, North Carolina, on Sports Byline USA, uniting sports fans everywhere. This is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
People want the authenticity, right? They want to know a little bit more. They don't want just the cliches.
For the next hour, we will unpack sports, faith, and life with intriguing guests from the sports and entertainment world.
I'm thankful that God has delivered me, and He's given me a mouthpiece to be able to, a platform as well to be able to share with different people.
Bringing you high energy and thought-provoking sports talk with a purpose.
When you're around somebody that has that joy and you can feel it and it's contagious.
Every day I ask, what does God have in store for me, and how does He want to utilize me in this position that I hold?
Now, from his mic to your ears, this is Bryce Johnson.
Welcome to the show that unpacks sports, faith, and life with intriguing guests from the sports and entertainment world. I'm Bryce Johnson. This is Unpacking It. We have got an awesome show for you today as we broadcast nationwide on Sports Byline USA. We're wrapping up our first month on the network, and it's been a blast. Thanks so much for listening. Always love to hear from you. You can shoot me an email, bryce@unpackingit.com. Today on the show, we'll be joined by Dr. Ed Uszynski. He's got a PhD in American Culture Studies and is the executive editor and senior writer for athletesinAction.org. He'll tell us all about his experience at the Browns game where they won and beat the Jets. And we're going to kind of look at Baker Mayfield and take kind of a deeper approach to who he is and what he represents at the quarterback position in Cleveland. And we're also going to take a look at some of the stories this week in sports that involve players asking to be traded, asking to be released, and transferring, and how those relate together. We're also going to be joined today by Renaldo Wynn. He's a former NFL defensive end. We'll get his thoughts on the NFL and what's going on there. We'll also do our segment Unpack This about Tiger Woods. And coming up next, we'll do our segment I'm Convinced, where I'll share some thoughts about the Rams, the Lions, and quarterbacks flopping. Check out our website, unpackingit.com. We'll be back right here on Unpacking It on Sports Byline USA.
More sports, faith, and life coming up on Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson. Intriguing guests and inspiring conversations. This is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We're a show that unpacks sports, faith, and life. Check out our website, unpackingit.com. Be sure to subscribe to our daily email where we take a current sports story and relate it to the Bible and our own lives. Also, we have a fantasy football playbook available, and you can find that at unpackingit.com. Well, right now, we're going to do a segment called I'm Convinced, where I take a look at the sports world and the stories from the week and let you know what I'm convinced of. So let's start with what happened on Thursday night, because I'm convinced Todd Gurley is right when he says we can't be beat right now. The LA Rams are on a roll. They're just lighting it up offensively. Defensively, they're doing enough, but offensively, it is ridiculous what Jared Goff, Todd Gurley, and the rest of the weapons are doing. They've got the right balance. They've got the right combination of young players and veteran players. They have the right combination of older coaches like Wade Phillips and then young guys like Sean McVay. It is amazing what the Rams have been able to do to put this team together and then also to start the year the way that they have. That was a convincing win on Thursday night. And the Vikings, to me, are still a good team. And so the fact that the Rams were able to get the win, going in, I thought the Vikings would win that one coming off the loss that they had against Buffalo. I thought they needed that one and that they would kind of get over the hump there. But the Rams made the defensive plays toward the end, and they've got those guys up front with Donald and Sue, and so they're just so strong. But I'm convinced that they're going to have just an incredible regular season, but I'm still convinced that they won't win the Super Bowl. Because I think too often when you look back over the years, the team that starts off the best or the hottest or also the team that maybe even has the most weapons, they're not the teams that normally win the Super Bowl. Because even when you think back to the Patriots, when they had their best season, when they were undefeated, they didn't win the Super Bowl that year because they lost to the Giants. And so I think we've seen that over the years where even in the regular season, you're like, oh, this team can't be beat. They get the number one seed. And then they kind of fall off or they fizzle toward the end of the year. That's my opinion. That's what I'm convinced is going to happen to the Rams. But in the meantime, yeah, they can't be beat. They can't be beat right now. They're on a roll. And as long as Todd Gurley is healthy, he's, to me, the one that really makes that team go because he just opens everything up for them. Goff is great, but Todd Gurley's even better, and he allows Goff to be great. And so I do have to admit, though, that I'm convinced I was wrong about the concept that multiple wide receivers wouldn't be able to put up big numbers in fantasy football. That was way off because Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp are all lighting it up, putting up huge numbers, and helping fantasy teams. I just can't believe that 3 wide receivers on one team can do that. But they're proven they're capable of that because Goff is throwing it all over the field. All right, number 2, the Eagles, Titans, Bengals, Bucks, Jags, Ravens, and Broncos are all 2-1. But I'm convinced the only team on that list we can trust is the Eagles, mainly because of the quarterback situation. Because with the Titans, can we trust Marcus Mariota? The Bengals, can we trust Andy Dalton? The Bucks, depending on which quarterback they use each week and moving forward, can Jameis Winston kind of get back in the swing of things and take over that offense? Or are they going to really rely on Ryan Fitzpatrick? And then with Jacksonville and Blake Bortles, it's hit or miss. You don't know how he's going to play week to week. And then the Baltimore Ravens, Joe Flacco, it just doesn't seem like he's really going to be their future. And they kind of got one foot out the door with him. So I just don't trust the Ravens. And then the Broncos with Case Keenum, I like Keenum. I think he can be the guy there. But to me, they're just not as reliable as I would like them to be, considering the weapons that they have. Because I like Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, and I think they have a couple nice running backs with Lindsey and Royce Freeman. And so I think the Broncos will be competitive, but I just don't trust them, and I don't know what to make of them. And so the only team, even though Carson Wentz is trying to come back from an injury, that we can be confident in, it's the Eagles. They're the ones we can trust, and they didn't look great against the Colts, but they looked good enough, and you can see the glimpses that Wentz will get back, he'll get into a rhythm again, and this team is going to be dangerous the rest of the way. Will they repeat as Super Bowl champions? That's going to be tough, but I think they'll win their division and be right there in the end in the NFC. And so those other teams, they're enjoying some early season success. The Bucks, the Jags, even the Titans, surprisingly, they're all 2-1. I just don't know if I buy into them. I'm convinced, number 3, the emphasis on player safety and calling reasonable roughing the passer penalties is good for the league overall because we have to have the starting quarterbacks out there, and so we want to protect them. It makes sense. They're what makes the league go. And so you want to have those reliable quarterbacks out there and healthy. Those are the teams we want to watch. However, this idea that quarterbacks are flopping or refs are calling penalties inconsistently that don't make sense, and it's the Clay Matthews type of calls, I'm convinced that will ruin the game. And so they have to clean this up. And Ravens defensive coordinator Don Martindale, he said this, let's not turn this into the NBA flop fest, because now the quarterbacks are making a mockery of it to the officials and the league. Now you're insulting the officials and the league if you do that. And so I'm convinced he's right. We can't see quarterbacks flopping. It's not a good look. And I was listening to Troy Aikman this week, and he was talking about how quarterbacks, they want to be known as tough. And I was also listening to Steve Young, and he was saying that, I don't know if I believe him, but he would pick up some of those flags and decline the penalty if he was being tackled the way that some of these quarterbacks have been tackled, yet called for the roughing the passer. And so we just don't want that. I don't think the quarterbacks truly want it or the fans truly want it. And we see the flopping take place all the time. You sell a call because ultimately it does help your team, whether it's the punter or the kicker or the quarterback or a wide receiver, whatever the penalty is related to that position, you try to sell it so that you can pick up extra yards. But we don't want to see that. We don't want to see quarterbacks just falling and flailing and trying to convince the refs that they were hit in such a dramatic way when the other night Ben Roethlisberger got tapped a little bit on his head because a defensive player was trying to make a play, and then he falls to the ground like he was hit by a truck. And so we just can't have that. So I'm with Don Martindale when he compares it to the NBA, because we've seen this in the NBA, and it's not good either, because we want to see a little bit more physical play in the NBA, and you can't have guys driving the lane and every defender is falling to the ground like again, they've been hit by a truck, and it's part of the game. We got to see some of the contact. And again, we want player safety and protection, but let's not take it too far. All right, last one. Now that the Lions got their first win under Matt Patricia against the Patriots on Sunday Night Football, I'm convinced the team is bought in and they will compete for a playoff spot. Because early on, I was worried. I was thinking, Matt Patricia is going to lose this locker room. They got off to a bad start. The players were talking about some of the changes that he made and not really buying in. But when you win the way they did the other night, and I am all in on Kerryon Johnson as the running back for the Lions and being a workhorse running back, and that's fine. You can put in LeGarrette Blount and Theo Riddick in certain spots, but Kerryon Johnson, finally, a 100-yard rusher for the Lions, is the real deal. And I think the Lions are going to turn the corner. I think the players can kind of see, all right, Matt Patricia, maybe we were hesitant at first. He's on to something here, because it's nice to beat the Patriots. Even if it is in September, and the Patriots always seem to lose in September, still mentally and kind of just wanting to get the buy-in, I think it's there. I really do. So that's what I'm convinced of this week. We've got two awesome interviews coming up with Dr. Ed Uszynski and Renaldo Wynn right here on Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson on Sports Byline USA.
More sports, faith, and life coming up on Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson. Bringing you unique insight into the faith and character of guests from the sports world. Welcome back to Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
Thanks for being with us today on Unpacking It as we unpack sports, faith, and life. Be sure to check out our website, unpackingit.com. Joining us right now is Renaldo Wynn. He played 13 years in the NFL with the Redskins, Jaguars, Giants, and Saints as a defensive end. He played his college football at Notre Dame and was a first-round draft pick by Jacksonville in 1997. He now works with Joe Gibbs Racing and the ministry Game Plan for Life. I'm thrilled to welcome back my friend and one of our favorite guests, Renaldo. How are you?
Hey, my brother. It's always good to be on, Bryce. Thank you.
All right, man. We're glad to have you back. And so we're 3 weeks into the NFL season. So what's been most intriguing to you so far?
Well, first of all, our guys in Cleveland got off the snide there after a long drought of no wins. And it was great to see, of course, with the kind of Cinderella story a lot earlier than we all thought. And Baker Mayfield, what a winner he is. And, man, I think everybody, and you can hear the fans in the stadium respond in terms of just the feedback for Baker Mayfield when he got inserted into the game. And he did what he's always done. And, of course, college is different from the pros, but it seemed like it didn't make a difference. And the guy brought a win to Cleveland, and a lot of fans. I had a chance to talk to a few Cleveland fans.
Nice.
And the one thing they're saying is that it almost felt if not almost better than the Cleveland Cavs winning the championship.
No, stop it. Wow.
I mean, did you see the fans in the stands crying? And I mean, it was one game, but for them, that one game was huge. And of course, the way it happened. So I think that was the biggest, I would say, intriguing story.
Yeah.
On the negative note, you had the guy to, kind of quit at halftime.
Yeah. What do you think of that? Vontae Davis.
Vontae Davis, man, a veteran guy who's been a staple on multiple teams, of course. And, for him to just walk away, at halftime, I get, maybe you don't have the love for the game and you don't want to cheat your teammates, but you're in the middle of battle. You on the battlefield. And man, what that does for, the morale of a team. And I'm so glad, actually, that Buffalo, they came back. And I'm talking about they came back hard.
Big time.
And got a big win when everybody probably thought that they were done. So it was good for them to respond the way they did. I wish they probably could have even won the game after Vontae Davis quit, because that's really what he did. I mean, he quit on his teammates, and even just for him, it's going to be hard for him to step in any football arena, just because guys are so adamant about never giving up, never letting your teammates down, and not being selfish. There's no me or I in team. And so I was great. I was so happy to see them beat the Vikes 27-6 last week.
That's right.
So I think those were the two most intriguing stories, of course. The Buffalo Bills kind of coming back with a big win after that situation, and then, the Cleveland Browns. How about you?
Yeah, well, no, so I actually went the opposite direction with that Vontae Davis story, because in life, I just think there are moments where you just have to know when it's time to go. And even when sometimes it's hard to give that news to other people, but in your heart that it's what you have to do. And so that was kind of my perspective on Davis. But I thought in
the middle of the game, Bryce?
Well, I didn't think he should have left. That was where the big mistake came, I thought, because he just disappeared. Whereas maybe if he said, hey guys, I just can't play in the second half. I got nothing left. Right. I got nothing left to give. I can't go back out there. I think that would have been received a little bit differently. Don't you? But just the fact that he left the stadium, nobody knew where he was, or really he just kind of mentioned, hey, I'm out of here. And so there's just kind of some confusion there. But,
right. I get it.
But I looked at it from a bigger kind of perspective, I guess.
I can see that.
Well, no, I understand what you're saying as a guy that's been in the locker room and as a teammate. I totally get that for sure. But that was a big story. There's no question. So we'll see how Buffalo, if they're able to keep things going, and they've got a young quarterback, and we'll see how he plays moving forward. We're talking with Renaldo Wynn here on Unpacking It. He played 13 years in the NFL, and of course, as a defensive end, what did you do? You sacked the quarterback, you rushed the quarterback, and so the first couple of weeks in the season, there have been 34 roughing the passer penalties. Everybody's talking about the direction the NFL's going. Clay Matthews, a couple kind of marquee plays that have gone against him. So what's your opinion as a defensive guy with what's going on?
It's out of control, and I'm not talking about out of control in terms of guys that are hitting the quarterback. I'm talking about calling the game, and that clearly is coming from up top, and they got to get it together, or we're going to lose more fans. And so, a perfect, football clinic type tackle, you couldn't have tackled any better than what Clay Matthews, did in that one call. And I'm thinking, like, what in the world? How much better could you be? It was a clinic type tackle. It's what you would use as a coach to show other guys how to tackle efficiently and appropriately. And here's a play that was called, and it made no sense at all. It really doesn't. And so, this is something that can be a big issue. I get safety. I'm all about it, protecting the quarterback, protecting other guys, especially defenseless receivers with those violent hits. But what do you do when guys are, tackling? The court, when he came to tackle the quarterback, the guy just threw the football. I mean, he had just released it, and he got called and penalized.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot more of those type of plays, and it's only week 4 we're going into. So, what you just said, how many
34
penalties?
roughing the passer penalties.
Oh, my gosh, 34.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. So hopefully this is kind of getting their attention because guys like us are talking about it, and more people will talk about it so they can do something about it. And really, of course, want to make it safe, but don't take away from guys playing hard, because as a defensive guy, you can't play, what guys have been telling us to do, play hard, go all out. Finish the play. You can't even finish the play because you don't want to get tagged for hurting your team by finishing the play. So, I think
that's a good point. Because, the idea that you have to hold up, like you go full speed and then you kind of got to pull back to where your weight doesn't go on a quarterback. That's hard to do. That doesn't really make sense.
Especially when you got a guy like a Ben Roethlisberger, who is such a big burly guy. You got to finish the guy, because if you don't, he's still throwing a completion when you got him wrapped up. I tackled Big Ben multiple times when I thought that he still had the football and finished him, and all of a sudden I thought I had a sack, and the dude is running down the field, with a catch.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I mean, you look at multiple times in past times when a guy would let up and then the quarterback finishes the play, and you know what I mean? And the defensive guy is getting ridiculed by everyone in the stadium along with the coaches and the announcers. But that's the reason, because he's afraid that I may get called for a penalty or something if I try to finish the quarterback or take him down on the ground. Yeah, it's a problem.
It's challenging. There's no question. We'll see how it kind of adjusts throughout the rest of the season. Renaldo Wynn, we've got about 2 minutes left, and so we love talking football with you, but always like to hear kind of what's going on with you personally. And so how has God been working in your life lately? What's kind of been on your heart recently?
Yeah, so as of lately, I've been really working with a lot of our inmates in terms of just helping them with their game plan. And we have a program that's for lifers. I call it Game Plan For Lifers. Guys that will not see the light of day outside the 4 walls of the prison, but has been given a second chance and a purpose to be able to be equipped with a seminary degree. We just had our second class these guys have been accepted into the program out of about 300 plus applicants throughout the state of North Carolina. You can only pick 30. I think it's harder to get in our program than it is to probably to get in Yale or something.
Wow.
But only 30 could be accepted each year, and so we just accepted the second class, freshmen now, and now the freshmen from last year are now sophomores. Of course, when they become seniors and graduate, they're launched out throughout the 56 prisons in the state of North Carolina, and these guys will be the guys that would change our prisons from the inside out, break this horrible cycle of recidivism, and of course impacting guys as they're coming back into our communities, because we want to be able to decrease victims. We want to lessen the victimizers of violent crimes. So what a blessing to be a part of a movement across the country, and we're just trying to do our part, Bryce.
It's awesome. So this is Renaldo Wynn. He works for Game Plan For Life. You got to check out GamePlan4Life.com and the work that they're doing. It's awesome, impacting inmates that are learning the Bible, they're learning theology, they're learning how to be pastors to the other inmates. And so it's just an incredible concept and great work. And so, Renaldo, we always love catching up with you and love talking a little football, but are encouraged by everything you're doing ministry-wise and excited to be a part of the outreach breakfast that you do as well around the country for men, businessmen, especially in cities. Yep. And so we'll be a part of that one in Charlotte coming up on October 30th. So keep up the great work, Renaldo, and we'll catch up again soon.
All right. Sounds great, man. Thank you for having me on anytime.
Absolutely. There's Renaldo Wynn joining us here on Unpacking It. Up next, we'll be joined by Dr. Ed Uszynski. We'll talk some more football with him. We're Unpacking It on Sports Byline USA.
The place to hear athletes opening up about their true passions in life. This is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
Fantasy football is the best. You compete with your friends and family all season long, and when you win, it's so exciting. I have won 2 rings myself, and as fun as fantasy football already is, what if we played with more purpose and meaning? Well, at Fantasy Football Fellowship, we created a way for you to have league meetings throughout the season to discuss how fantasy relates to our lives and the Bible. Each week, we have content, topics, and questions that allow fantasy owners to connect intentionally with each other and to God. We'll help your league have conversations about fantasy, faith, and life as you go from the draft to the championship. Play fantasy football and change your lives. Sign your league up today at fantasyfootballfellowship.com.
Going beyond the field, this is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson on Sports Byline USA.
We're going to keep things moving here on Unpacking It as we bring on our next guest, Ed Uszynski, to unpack sports, faith, and life. Ed has a PhD in American Culture Studies and has been working with college and professional athletes in various roles with Athletes in Action since 1992. Currently, he serves as executive editor and senior writer for athletesinaction.org, while also speaking nationally to college students, churches, and men's groups. He's been one of our regular guests, our favorite guests over the years, and we're glad to have Ed back on the show today. Ed, thanks for being with us. How are you?
Good, Bryce. Yeah, it's good to be back with you, man. It's been a while since we've been able to pull one of these off, so I'm glad to get after it with you again.
Absolutely. Well, there's always plenty to talk about, and so we're going to kind of focus on 2 things today. But I want to start with the Cleveland Browns because they've been one of these intriguing teams even before the season. And, of course, they had the number 1 draft pick with Baker Mayfield. And you were actually at last week's game where Mayfield made his debut, led them to victory, the first time in a long time. So what was that experience like?
I was there, and a little bit of the backstory for me is that I'm from Cleveland. So, I get to go up there every once in a while. I try to make my way up there with my son. My oldest son is a senior in high school, and so we picked this game. It was going to be the only one that worked. And, man, Bryce, it was the most fun I've ever had at a game with my son.
Really?
I mean, it was, it's, we're a week past it now, but everybody heard it was just an electric environment. They haven't won in forever, which is sort of amazing. You would just, it's hard to believe that an environment could be as lit up as it was, considering they hadn't won in, what was it, like 600 some days.
Oh, yeah.
But there was just such great anticipation, and it wound up being a little bit like a Disney movie. I mean, it just was getting worse and worse as the first half went on, and everybody was just anticipating, could we unwrap the first round gift? That's what people were saying up in the crowd. And of course, it wasn't a Disney movie for Tyrod Taylor and people around him, but he got hurt, and that opened up the door for Mayfield to come in, and you could just palpably feel something in the stadium different. It's so interesting because, not every player can create that kind of an aura in a stadium. It's just not true for everybody, and this kid can already do that.
Absolutely. So, no, I was watching on TV, and I was captivated once he came in, and everything just seemed to lift, and it just, like you said, it was totally different. So, what is it about a player like Mayfield, and what do you think just about this concept of the it factor and just how certain people, certain personalities have this captivating quality to them, and oftentimes we just see this in sports, and they're just it's a rare quality, but you know it when you see it. So just from your perspective, what do you make of that?
Yeah, and I thought about that afterwards because you really could feel something different. You could see it on the sidelines, on the Browns sideline. You could see there's sort of an excitement. Everybody rose up. There were guys standing on the bench looking out at the field, and and the defense played better, and suddenly people were getting tackled on special teams. And so it made me think about that very question. In fact, I even wondered, how does that translate into off the field situations? Like, what does it take to be the kind of person that walks into an environment or in with a group of people and makes everybody better? And so some of the things I thought to myself, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. I mean, there's a confidence. There's a certain kind of confidence that comes with a person like that. And there's a confidence because not only are they prepared, but they've been successful before. They've got a clear sense of their purpose and just this sense of purpose that I'm the one that's going to be able to help this situation. I can make this happen here. And if y'all want to come with me, you can. If you don't, that's fine. But I'm going to step into this moment and we're going to get something done here. And that's just really attractive, I think, to people when somebody's like that. And again, there's a thin line between that and being cocky or becoming a bully, becoming the kind of person that becomes very unattractive if they become a tyrant in that. But as long as it stays on the side of I'm here to serve and I'm here to help and I'm here to make everybody else better, come follow me. There's just something very attractive about a person, whether that's out on a football field or in an office space,
It's cool. And for him, he just has the winning mentality. And it's so tough to go into an environment like Cleveland where the mentality is losing. Like even you as a fan, as you're sitting there in the crowd, what did you think in the first half? Well, we're going to lose today. And because things start unraveling and the negative momentum starts to pick up. But then there are certain people where they just don't allow that to happen, and they do whatever they can to kind of turn the tide. And that's what I see with Mayfield is he's come in there. He was the number one draft pick. He's used to winning. He did it at Oklahoma, won the Heisman, and that's his mentality. And he's not concerned with the history of Cleveland. He's fine living up to the pressure. He's embracing this concept that the whole city and all the fans are relying on him to such a major degree. He just, hey, let's go. Whereas not every rookie, especially, but even every quarterback can handle that type of thing, because we see it every year where there are a couple of the quarterbacks that come in with a lot of hype and they just can't handle it and they fizzle out of the league.
The culture just swallows them up, It's funny, even as I sat there and there was like 30 seconds left or something, and I turned to guys and said, like, this is where they find a way to lose. They haven't given up a big play the entire game, and now someone's going to fall down and the Jets are going to get an 80-yard touchdown or something. Like, that's what happens. That's insightful what you're saying, Bryce. So, like, when the culture starts to become to lose, you find ways to lose. You will yourself to lose. And it's contagious with everybody. The beautiful thing is all it takes is one person that can step into that. And of course, you got to have some other talent around too. I mean, it's not like he can, pull water from a rock, but there's some other talent there. And one person though can step into that and say, it's time to win. We're going to will ourselves to a win. And again, it's not magic. It's based on preparation. It's based on taking care of your business ahead of time, refining your skill and your craft. It just doesn't happen out of thin air, but that type of person can go in there and say, I'm ready and I'm ready to take you with me.
That's right.
So it's beautiful when it works out.
It is. It's going to be fascinating to watch the Browns and watch Mayfield continue to develop. We're talking with Ed Uszynski right now on Unpacking It. He works with Athletes in Action. He's their executive editor and senior writer for athletesinaction.org. He's got a PhD in culture studies and always love having him on the show. And so when we look at this concept of a player being contagious and a great leader, how does this translate to kind of looking through the lens of faith? And as you kind of think of some of those qualities, how can we be encouraged if we want to follow Jesus, if we want to live out our faith and be attractive to other people? How does some of that translate?
I don't know why it is that God creates some people with a certain personality, like what we're talking about with Mayfield, as far as I know, and others like him. It's a personality thing. It's an aura that's just sort of built into how they were created. But I do think there's a parallel to people of faith, that when you know the Lord, like really know him, and you walk with him, and you know his word, and you know yourself. You kind of know what you are and know what you aren't. You understand your place in relationship to other people. You have no fear of the future. Even though you don't know all the details of it, you know whose hands you're in. You know you're forgiven for your past. I mean, when you're really free like that because of all those things, that becomes a very attractive person. And I know those kind of people when I'm around them too. And they just somebody that walks that closely with the Lord and is that secure in themselves and, more to the point, secure in him. Man, that's a very followable person. You know you're in the presence of somebody that you can trust and that is there more for you than they are for themselves, and has both feet planted firmly on the ground instead of firmly in the air. You know, it's just a very attractive thing to be around. It's kind of person I want to be. It's the kind of person I think we should aspire to be. I don't think that there's just certain special people that can become that way. I think it's called walking with God.
That's right.
You know, it's a day-by-day walk with Jesus, like for real, produces that kind of fruit and that kind of an aura in a person's life.
Definitely.
As they mature.
No, it's a cool kind of, illustration and two separate kind of topics as far as the type of quarterback or leader on the football field. And not everybody can be that. But what you're describing as a true follower of Jesus, that is something that is attainable and that we can strive for and grow toward. And so that is encouraging to hear today. The one other topic we want to get to, and we've only got a couple minutes to get to this, but three stories stood out to me this week, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this because I think there's an underlying similarity with the Titans wide receiver Rashard Matthews, how he asked for a release and the Titans let him go. Then you've got Jimmy Butler demanding to be traded away from the T-Wolves. And then you've got quarterback Kelly Bryant transferring from Clemson after he was benched and is no longer the starter for the Tigers. Then, so when you look at all three of these, on one end, I'm fine with players having freedom and having the right to play where they want to play. Yep. But there are also these stories that kind of make you raise the question about commitment, loyalty, just always looking out for what's best individually. So what is your perspective on this when you kind of factor in society and even faith?
Yeah, well, you know what, Bryce, I am concerned about the message that just kind of hangs over all of us these days. Individually, I don't blame anybody for seeking what they think is best for them. And, you know, we always hear guys say, I got to do what's best for me and my family. I get that in principle, but I think what's happening, and I see this at the youth levels in particular, so I think this is something for parents to talk about, that as soon as the way gets a little difficult, as soon as I bump into I'm not getting the playing time that I thought I was going to get, as soon as I'm in a situation where I don't like the way the coach talks to me, or I just don't like the circumstances, we allow ourselves to take the easy way out, to quit, to just go and serve myself as though that's the highest ideal. And I'm just concerned about what happens when we all start to operate that way as a society. I don't think is a good result for us as a nation and as a people, but even just for us as individuals. I don't think the long-term result of always just seeking what's best for me lends itself to human flourishing, whether in sports or in other areas of life, whether it comes to family or, you know, work relationships. When I'm just going to quit every time it gets a little bit hard, man, that's not the way of the cross.
No.
So there's so many other things to talk about with that, but that's my biggest concern.
Yeah, because there's value in suffering, but all too often we run from that a little too quickly without embracing some of that. And I'm not going to say these three guys are all making bad decisions, but it just makes you kind of wonder at the larger picture and where this leads us. So, Ed, really appreciate you joining us today. It was a quick segment, but great to get some of your insight. Encourage everyone to check out athletesinaction.org to find more from Ed Uszynski. But really appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Bryce. I look forward to doing it again.
All right. Sounds great. Up next, we're going to do our segment Unpack This about Tiger Woods. We're unpacking it with Bryce Johnson right here on Sports Byline USA.
inspiring conversations, and intriguing interviews. More Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson after this.
This is Unpacking It. I'm Bryce Johnson. It's time for our final segment. We call it Unpack This, where I take a current sports story and relate it to the Bible and our own lives. And so let's jump right in. Tiger Woods will never win again. Tiger will never be able to dominate the field again. Tiger will never be healthy. Tiger will never get his swing back. Those were the thoughts and opinions of many fans and analysts over the last 5 years as Tiger struggled with back surgeries, off-the-course issues, and poor performances during tournaments. Last Sunday, the story changed as Tiger won his 80th PGA Tour event and his first win since 2013. Tiger only played in 3 tournaments in the previous 2 years, and when 2018 began, he was ranked 656th in the world. He's gone on to have an incredible comeback year, finishing in the top 10 6 different times, competing in majors, and then winning the Tour Championship. Tiger could have easily given up on himself years ago, as most people did, but he's proven the nevers don't stop him. They only motivate him to keep persevering. Every one of us has nevers that come from within or from the critics in our lives. Thoughts such as, I'll never get a good job. I'll never break my habit. I'll never change. I'll never be good enough, or I'll never get through this difficulty. When we allow ourselves to believe these types of nevers, we're not operating with faith and hope. We're focused on our current circumstances and our limited understanding instead of focusing on God's truth, power, and faithfulness. So how do we combat the negative thinking in our lives and the times we feel discouraged by our nevers? Scripture enables us to replace them with encouraging and uplifting nevers that strengthen us to persevere by saying, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. God never lies. God says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Today, let's allow these biblical nevers to enhance our journey as we rely on Him, knowing we can always overcome the nevers that try to defeat us. I hope you're willing to unpack that. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you'll stay connected with us throughout the week on social media and on unpackingit.com. If you have any thoughts about today's show, email me, bryce@unpackingit.com. Until next time, I'm Bryce Johnson, and I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that He died on the cross for my sins, He was resurrected, and through faith, I have been saved by His grace. I hope that is true for you as well, and I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. Have a wonderful week. This has been Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson on Sports Byline USA.